What are we discussing on today's Locked On Diamondbacks podcast? The D-backs took care of business against the Washington Nationals, but can they do it one more time in the NLCS rematch against the Philadelphia Phillies?
You are Locked On Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You're listening to who? Always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas, multimedia journalist and graphic designer. So please go check out my website, millardthomas24.myportfolio.com. On there you can see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. Today's episode is brought to you by Tax Network USA. Did you know that it's never too late to resolve your tax issues with the IRS? Don't wait. Reduce your tax debt and get help from a team of licensed tax professionals. Call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. On today's Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, we'll talk about the D-backs handling their business and taking down the Washington Nationals to really feel good in the wild card standings. We'll talk about if they can keep the momentum going against the best and hottest team in the NL in the Philadelphia Phillies. And we'll talk about some playing time adjustments that we need to talk about with Torey Lovullo in segment number 3. Thank you for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free. It's available on all platforms. So please continue to tell your friends. And one of those platforms is YouTube. So please hit subscribe to Locked On Diamondbacks on YouTube. We're trying to hit 2,000 subs by the All-Star break. So once again, please hit subscribe to Locked On Diamondbacks on YouTube. Now let's talk about that D-back series against the Washington Nationals, because there was some trepidation going to that series finale. We've seen the D-backs a bunch the past few series, right? Go into that finale with us not knowing if they were going to win, tie, or lose the series. And once again, the D-backs step up in the series finale as they've done the last 3 times, because they've been really good recently in the series finales. Entering today's game against the Nats, over their last 3 series finale, they were averaging over 10 runs a game. And so you felt like in a 1-1 series against a team in the wild card race that is directly ahead of you in the standings by a half game, you would think the offense was going to show up in that finale as they've done over the past few series. And once again, the D-backs offense was able to do that. They do just enough, put 5 runs on the board. But again, a complete team effort. 13 hits by the D-backs. I always say, look at the strikeouts. I will tell a big story of the game. For once, not a big story in this game. 12 strikeouts by the D-backs did not stop the offense, but maybe we get a few more runs on the board if we don't have 12 strikeouts. D-backs 5 for 13 with runners in score position. And that was probably the biggest takeaway when watching this game. D-backs were very clutch. Whenever there was a runner on second, 1 out, 2 outs, and you had to get the guy home, whether it's Tucker Barnhart or just Ketel Marte on second base, Lourdes Gurriel gets a hit to move him over to third. I thought it was just a very clutch game overall by this D-backs team to come through with men on the bases, men with runners in scoring position. I thought this was one of the better offensive performances by the D-backs. Despite only putting 5 runs on the board, I felt like they were coming through when they had their opportunities, and that's what you want to see most of all. And when you're looking at the box score, you notice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys with multi-hit games. And it's not always the stars. Randall Grichuk, batting number 2 for the D-backs. He gets a couple hits. Jake McCarthy, who has been so important for Arizona this year. 3 hits for him. Kevin Newman, someone that was not expected to have a big role with the team this season. He also had 2 hits himself. It was a complete D-backs effort offensively from top to bottom, and we really needed a strong offense performance. After game number 2 against Patrick Corbin, former Arizona Diamondback, where he shuts you down and makes you look like a minor league franchise. Maybe that's a little hyperbolic, but Corbin in game 2, 5 innings, 1 earned run, 7 Ks, like he dominated the hottest team in the NL in the month of June. And so there was a little bit of concern if the D-backs were going to step up in the series finale because, listen, I know the last 3 series finales, they have looked really good, but this D-backs team, even with today's win, still below 500. So you can only have so much confidence in a team that's not even a 500 ball club. Like, we are over 70 games in, and this D-backs team is still not 500 yet on the season. So excuse me if I had a little pause for concern entering the series finale. I still don't have all the faith and trust that I want to have in this D-backs team. It's growing slowly but surely with every passing week, with every series. I have a little bit more confidence in this D-backs team, but if you're telling me in a 1-1 series against another wild card opponent in the Washington Nationals, is a guarantee the D-backs are going to win that series finale? No, it is not. I would not have put money on the D-backs money line, but thankfully the D-backs, they did not make me upset. I get to come on this podcast happy because they handled their business against the Nationals in the finale on Thursday. And now you look at the wild card standings. The D-backs currently owners of the second wild card spot. That could potentially change depending on what happens in the Giants-Cardinals series because I'm recording this while that game's going on. But regardless, I believe the D-backs regardless will be tied for a wild card spot at the end of this day, which is, something that we've been fighting for a long time, right? There have been times where the D-backs are in the wild card race or just outside, but it's never for a prolonged period of time where we say, you know what? D-backs have had a wild card spot for 2 weeks now. I want to say that. I want to know what it feels like to be a team in the wild card race and own a wild card spot for multiple days, for multiple weeks. That's where the D-backs should be. They should firmly be in the driver's seat for that number 2 wild card spot. And taking care of the Washington Nationals definitely helps your cause. The D-backs, when you look at the teams that they own the tiebreaker over now in the wild card race, they're starting to build a nice little repertoire. Maybe that's not what I want to say. They're building a nice little arsenal of wins against other teams in the wild card race. They're 1 game back in the series against the San Diego Padres. They're 3-4 against the Padres. I do believe the D-backs can catch them by the end of the season. They're 4-3 against the Giants, so they currently own the wild card against the Giants. They own the wild card against the Nationals because they've won 2 out of 3 games. This was their only series. They own the Cincinnati Reds. They've beaten them 5 out of 6 times already. They're a game back of the Chicago Cubs in their series so far this year, so you want to win that season series against the Cubs. So really, when looking at this wild card race, I would say the Cubs and the Padres are probably the 2 biggest ones right now. The D-backs haven't faced a team like the Pittsburgh Pirates yet. They're 500 against the St. Louis Cardinals. That's very important. So I assume they play the Cardinals at least one more time this year. I would have to go back and honestly double check the D-backs schedule. I'm looking at it right now. They might be done against the Cardinals for the rest of the year. So as it currently stands, they're tied with the St. Louis Cardinals on the season. So that will probably come down to like what conference record or division record, something crazy, maybe like run scored, run differential. I'm not too sure. But if the D-backs own the wild card over the Nationals, the Giants, potentially the Padres, if you can own it over the Cubs, if you can own it over every team not named the Cardinals, I would assume that the math would math to where you also own the tiebreaker over the Cardinals by the end of the season. So great big victory by the D-backs in the finale on Thursday. Also, don't want to forget, shout out Ryan Nelson, another great start by him. Super efficient. Back-to-back days where the D-back starter just really efficient. Ryan Nelson, 7 innings, 2 earned runs, and only threw 70 pitches total. He looked fantastic. You got Thompson, you got Paul Sewald. The D-backs pitching staff did its job. The D-backs offense did their job. They were able to take a hold of the second wild card spot as we are currently recording this podcast. D-backs take down another mediocre opponent. Only 3 more series left in the month of June. I think the D-backs are going to win 2 of the next 3. I don't think they'll win the next one against the Philadelphia Phillies, but hey, you never know. D-backs went in there last year in the NLCS and took it to Philly in their home ballpark, and maybe they could do that once again, and that's what we'll discuss in segment number 2. But hey, if you need any help with your taxes, here on Locked On Dimebacks, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team, whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs. It's year round. You know what else is year round? Collection season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. With over 14 years of experience and an A-plus rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, or you finally hit that parlay this season and need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. See the link in the episode description below. All right. Let's get back into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, and let's talk about that next series against the Philadelphia Phillies, because we got a rematch of the NLCS. If you have to ask the question, who does this series matter more to? It depends your perspective on it, because for the D-backs, this series matters a lot because you're trying to keep pace in the wild card race. If you take down the Philadelphia Phillies, it brings almost like a renewed level of confidence in this D-backs team. They've been playing so well in the month of June. Their offense looks like the best in the National League this month. They've been taking care of series left and right. They've been handling their business against these mediocre opponents. They even beat the Dodgers earlier this month, right? But the D-backs, outside of the Dodgers, really haven't beaten anyone that good this year. And yes, outside the Dodgers is a pretty big exception, but the Dodgers are a team in the NL West. They are a team that the D-backs see a million times a season. So if there was a very good team that the D-backs were going to beat, the Dodgers were probably on that short list just because of the familiarity between the two teams. But if you can go into that environment in Philadelphia and take care of business against the Phillies, if you're a Phillies fan, would you be like, man, maybe the D-backs have our number, and this is a team that we have to avoid in the postseason? That's why I asked the question, who does this series matter more to? Because for the D-backs, it means a lot for this regular season. It means a lot for growing the confidence of the D-backs fan base, the D-backs players, and showing you this is still a team that you can't mess with. This is still a team that is the reigning National League champs, and they still have the talent to potentially get back to the World Series. But if you're the Phillies, this series matters a lot to you, because if you're one of the hottest teams in Major League Baseball right now, arguably the best team in the National League, if you've been cruising, taking care of every opponent you face on your schedule, then all of a sudden, the one opponent who knocked you out of the postseason last year, who kind of zapped you of your mojo, because the big narrative around the Phillies the last couple of years was that team can't be beaten at home. If you go to Philadelphia, you're going to lose. And with the D-backs, game 6 and 7 on the road in Philly in the NLCS, no one believed in the D-backs except the people in Arizona in that clubhouse. I didn't even believe in the D-backs as the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast host, and I should have, because the D-backs were able to handle business and go to the World Series. And if you're the Philadelphia Phillies, coming off that experience after crushing it the entire 2024 season, now you get to have your redemption against the Arizona Diamondbacks team who is down bad with injuries, who is vulnerable from the start of the season with poor performance from guys like Lourdes Gurriel and Corbin Carroll and a bunch of other guys. If all of that is happening to the D-backs, or there's below 500 team entering your home field of the Phillies, if you're Philadelphia, if you can't handle your business against the D-backs right now when they're at their lowest point, then are you ever going to feel like you could beat the D-backs, especially if you have to face off against them in a postseason setting? This series matters to both teams, but for different reasons. For the D-backs, it's all about the regular season, staying pace in the wild card. And for the Phillies, it's to prove to themselves that they can beat Arizona, no matter what version of Arizona you get. And if you can't beat this version of Arizona, I don't know if you could be the best version of the D-backs once you get to the postseason. So I think this series matters so much for both teams. And right now, this Philadelphia Phillies team, you can't deny they're one of the best, if not the best, in the National League. They have the second best run differential, um, just behind the LA Dodgers. But if you look at the MLB stats, this Phillies offense, number two in runs scored behind only the LA Dodgers, number two in OPS behind only the LA Dodgers, number two in home runs behind only the LA Dodgers. They are fourth in steals. And of course, we know all about their offense. It's not surprised that I just named a whole bunch of offensive stats for the Phillies, and they were top two in almost every offensive category because that Phillies lineup is stacked. They've spent a ton of money on that Phillies lineup. So it's not a surprise to see that it is once again having a fantastic season. Guys like Bryce Harper, again, elite player, having an elite season, which is not a surprise to anyone. Over 900 OPS for Harper, almost 20 home runs. That's not a surprise to anyone. A guy like Trey Turner, he looks back when he's healthy this year. He has been crushing the ball. Kyle Schwarber, he's once again crushing the ball. Alec Baum having himself a fantastic season as well. They're getting so many contributions up and down their lineup. That's not a surprise to anyone. What is a surprise is how good their pitching has been this year. They are number one in the National League in terms of team ERA. When you look at the ERAs up and down their roster, it's not a surprise why. Aaron Nola has the second worst ERA in their rotation, and he's a 3.54 guy. We know how elite Aaron Nola is. Ranger Suarez looks like he's a top three Cy Young candidate right now. Sub .9 whip, sub 2 ERA. He's been elite. Zach Wheeler, he's been elite. Christopher Sanchez, the number 4 starter, he's been fantastic as well. Then they've had a very strong bullpen as well. Alvarado, Hoffman, and Strom, elite 1, 2, 3 for the Phillies. And Spencer Turnbull as well has been really good as a spot starter for the Phillies this year. So the pitching, the offense, all of it really good for Philadelphia. And for the D-backs, if they can keep momentum going that they've used all the month of June, they've been able to handle their series against a lot of these mediocre opponents. Their offenses looked really good. The D-backs are going to need their offense to step up again in this series. This is going to be potentially a knockout, drag them out series. We're going to go blow for blow against the Philadelphia Phillies because the pitching right now for the D-backs, not the best, right? You got Jordan Montgomery going game number 1 against Taijuan Walker, who is the worst starter for Philadelphia. So that is a big game that the D-backs need to start off right, because with your best pitcher on the mound going against the worst pitcher for the Phillies, you kind of have to win that game because it's not going to be much easier the next two. Zach Wheeler in game 2 against potentially Tommy Henry starting, not pretty. And then Slade Ciccone, who feels like he's due for a bad start against Christopher Sanchez. Don't like that pitching matchup either. I think we're really going to need to rely on the offense this series if the D-backs want to beat the Philadelphia Phillies. And to do that, we're going to have to put our best players on the field. That's why I want to talk to Toy Lavello in segment number 3 about adjusting some playing times. And if you're looking to upgrade your style, you need to use Stitch Fix, because you know that instant confidence boost you get from an outfit that makes you look really good. That's what I get with Stitch Fix. With Stitch Fix, you get a stylist who understands your style, size, and budget. They do all the shopping for you. It's the easiest way to update your wardrobe this season. Easily upgrade your wardrobe this year with a professional stylist that helps you find new on-trend favorites that will work for you. I just give my stylist my size, style, and budget preferences. I order boxes when I want and how I want. No subscription required. And they send 5 just for me pieces, plus outfit recommendations and pro styling advice. I keep what works and send back the rest. My stylist always sends just right pieces, and the fit is on point. It's like they have style ESP. I don't know how they do it, but they just get me. Stitch Fix makes it also easy. I don't like to shop, and they save me the time and effort. Plus, I get the outfits that make me look and feel really good. style that makes you feel as good as you look. Now's the best time to get started at stitchfix.com/MLB and get $100 off. That's $25 off your first 4 fixes for a limited time only. That's stitchfix.com/MLB for $100 off. Stitchfix.com/MLB. Must redeem within 7 days of sign up. Offer does not include kids fixes. All right. Let's get back into the Locked on Dimebacks podcast. Let's have a little chat here with Toy Lavello. I feel like at times Toy Lavello does listen to the podcast because, guys, watch what happens with the lineup the rest of this weekend after I drop this podcast, because I'm telling you, every time I talk to Tori about what he should do in the lineup, he does it. And now I have some more adjustments I would love Tori to do with the lineup, because there are some dudes that need more playing time. There are some dudes that need less playing time right now for the D-backs. The obvious guy who needs less playing time is Eugenio Suarez. And I don't know what Tori's obsession with Eugenio Suarez is right now. I thought we had a conversation with Tori where he said to the public, hey, Suarez is not going to play as much. We're going to mix in Blaze and the Domos a little bit more now that we have more pieces on the left side of the infield. Suarez maybe goes to the bench a little bit more often. And right now, it does not feel like that's often enough. Suarez is incredibly bad. He provides nothing offensively. The only thing that he's doing right over the past couple of weeks is not swinging the bat as much and just taking pitches, and it has led to an increased amount of walks for Suarez. But even with that being said, he just does nothing to help out the D-backs offensively. And I'm surprised why Tori Lavello is committed to playing him like every day still. And not just every day, he's putting Suarez still in important positions, in power positions in the lineup. You look at the finale today against the Washington Nationals. Why is Eugenio Suarez batting 5th for the Arizona Diamondbacks? 5th. I don't understand it. Look, the numbers tell you he's actually good with runners in scoring position. Somehow, Suarez this season, runners in scoring position, over a 300 average, almost a 800 OPS. That's what the numbers tell you. I don't care. The eye test tells me he does nothing when there's runners on board. I feel like every time there's a situation for Eugenio Suarez to do something, he just never does it. I don't care what the stats say. My eye test tells me Eugenio Suarez is a negative player. And the fact that he was batting 5th for the D-backs today makes no sense. We have Blaze, we have Newman, we have Ketel, we have Geraldo Perdomo. We have so many guys that could play in the infield. How is Eugenio Suarez still playing every day? How do we have Newman, Blaze, Marte all starting in a game where Eugenio Suarez is also starting, and not just starting, Eugenio Suarez is batting 5th. 5th. Make it make sense. How is Eugenio Suarez batting 5th? How are players like Domo and Carroll and whoever else, Gabriel Moreno, going to the bench? But it feels like Eugenio Suarez is playing every single day. It doesn't make any sense, Tori Lavello. And then you know what he did in game number 2? He said, Eugenio, we're actually going to give you a day off from third. But guess what? We need that bat in the lineup. We're going to put you at DH. Why is Eugenio Suarez batting DH for the D-backs? Listen, I know there was a lefty on the mound in game number 2. Eugenio Suarez is horrendous. Put Jock Peterson in at DH, or you know what? Jake McCarthy, as the left-handed bat, is batting over 400 against lefties this season. Put him at DH over a Eugenio Suarez. I'm over the Eugenio Suarez experience. He does nothing offensively, makes no positive contributions, makes no impacts, does not get any clutch hits. He does nothing. He's a black hole in the lineup, and I don't understand why Tori Lavello, one, plays him every day, and when he does play him, he's batting 5th or 6th in the lineup every single time out there. Batted 6th in the lineup on in game number 2 yesterday. Batted 5th today. Like, what are we doing? How is a guy like Jake McCarthy batting behind Eugenio Suarez every single day? How are guys like Kevin Newman, who's batting 290 on the season, batting behind Eugenio Suarez every single day? It doesn't make any sense. The Eugenio Suarez experiment is over. We've seen enough of a sample size from Eugenio. He's played 71 games this season, almost a half season worth of games, almost a NBA season's worth of games. You know what? The 2021, 2022 NBA season was only 72 games, I think. So you do have a version of an NBA schedule's worth of games that Eugenio Suarez has played. And guess what? His slash line after 72 games, 198 average, 279 OBP, and a 317 slugging. Eugenio Suarez is absolutely horrendous, and he needs to stop playing so much for the D-backs, because imagine how much better this line could be if you had a combination of Geraldo Perdomo, Blaze, and Kevin Newman as the left side of your infield every day. Your offense would be so much better. That kind of parlays into my next thing. We need to get more playing time for both Randall Grichuk and Jake McCarthy. And you could do that by doing things like game number 2, instead of Eugenio DH, Jake McCarthy DH. Jake McCarthy has been so good for the D-backs this season. 3 more hits in the finale. His slash line now, 298 average, 378 OBP, the highest OBP on the team right now, and a 422 slugging. No one's getting on base at a higher rate on this D-backs team outside of Jock Peterson than a Jake McCarthy. He's been so good filling in for Alek Thomas. He's been so good stepping up in the lack of performance for the Carrolls and the Lord Gurriels. Jake McCarthy better not be on the chopping block trade deadline. I love him. And then Randall Grichuk needs to play more as well. Again, it's tough, but maybe you play Grichuk and Lourdes Gurriel. Maybe split their time a little bit more. Both righty outfielders. Maybe you make it more of an even platoon split with those two guys, because Grichuk, again, he's just been way too good for the D-backs this year. His slash line now, 304, 360, 464. Like the offseason additions in the lineup, Jock, Grichuk, they've been so good for the D-backs this season. And somehow we need to figure out a way to get Grichuk in the lineup more, Jake McCarthy in the lineup more, Jock Peterson, Kevin Newman. Like the guys who are playing well, crazy thought, need to be playing more. Put your hottest bats in the lineup more and take guys like Eugenio Suarez out the lineup. A guy like Blaze Alexander, I love. He's been struggling a little bit more recently. Maybe we don't do as much Blaze Alexander going forward. I could see a world where Alek Thomas, maybe he comes back. Maybe you send down Blaze Alexander to AAA. Maybe you cut Eugenio and you call Pavin Smith back up. Don't know. Could be a possibility. But for the D-backs, stop playing Eugenio Suarez and play your hottest bats more if you want to see the best version of this D-backs team. Now, that's it for this edition of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Come back next week for more Diamondbacks news coverage and insight. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Doses.